Since Dan spoke, it's been 55 seconds. In this 55 seconds, I managed to judge each and every one of you. It's kind of scary, huh? It took me 55 seconds to actually look at your resume, look you in the eye, look at the things you've done in the last 5 to 10 years, and throw you to the trash can. In fact, most HR people spend 30 seconds on looking at your resume in that first glance. So today we want to talk to you a little bit about how to go through that first initial stone, and then how to look at 3 specific problems that arise specifically to GSB. So the first impression is what matters. This is a resume. You want to make sure it's crisp, clear, and it points in the right directions. The second thing is you got to start thinking as a recruiter. That's a lot of text. So what would they spend their 30 seconds? You want to give the information so it's easy to identify. You're going to be looking for where you went to school, what's the name of the last few firms, some dates, and some locations. If you make it easy for them to look for that information, you'll make it a lot easier to highlight what's important, to spend more time on other areas. The second thing is they're only going to read the top of the resume and only the first few words of each line. It sounds ridiculous because you have to write all the rest of it and it's important. But that's really where you should spend your time on and attention. The last thing is, it's kind of like when you're flipping through a magazine and you go from picture to picture. Well, they tend to go from number to number. So if you have numbers that are important and can highlight the specific areas, that's really what you like them to be. In summary, you want it to be crisp and organized and clean. You want it to focus on pointing in the right directions of where they should start spending time on. You want to focus on where they're going to look at first. And lastly, you want to make sure you put the numbers so that they're guided to those directions. So today we're going to talk about 3 specific people: Scott, Rainey, and Powell. And they're going to share with us some of the complications of this 30-second or 60-second view of your resume from their perspectives. From Scott's perspective as a banker that's changing careers. From Rainey's perspective, it's an international applying in the US. And from Powell's perspective of how it is to apply to work here at Silicon Valley.
Thank you. All right, I want to start by asking how many people came to graduate school to change careers? That looks about right. So the CMC, the Career Management Center at the GSB, said that 75% of GSB students are career changers. And many more of us will change careers in the first few years after leaving the GSB. Now, I myself am a career changer. Prior to coming to the GSB, I was a baseball player, then I was an investment banker, then I was a solar energy guy, all of which leads to a very linear, perfect, straight career path into education. So one of the reasons why I became interested in education is because there's a high need for people with finance and operation skills. I have those skills, yet when I first started to look at jobs and even offered an intern for free, I couldn't take anybody serious. I couldn't get anybody to take me seriously. So I want to share with you guys 2 tips and pieces of advice that I learned that also happen to be the 2 biggest mistakes that career changers make on their resumes at the GSB, so you guys will be able to use these going forward. So career changer advice number 1 is to remove non-essential, industry-specific technical language from your resume. So here's my resume. Here's a part of my resume before I started at the GSB. Now, Amber McCoy, you worked in education. Do you have any idea what this means? No, exactly. So someone who worked in investment banking might have a pretty good idea of what all this is. But me trying to go in and speak to someone in education, they have no idea the type of skill set that I can bring. So what did I do? Well, first I took away all the transactions because, to be frank, no one really cares about those anyway outside of banking. Second, I realized that the term quantitative valuation analysis was too technical for people in education. So I switched it to say to measure the value of companies, which was a lot simpler. And finally, I took that second bullet point and changed it to show that basically I was able to build something small into something big, and in any industry, that's an important experience to have. So my second piece of advice is to demonstrate interest in your new field. I worked at First Solar before I came to the GSB, and I'd also done a bunch of community service. But when I went to go interview with people in education, they'd say, why, given your background, why the hell do you want to do this? And what I realized is that I had initially left out a couple of important things that would have mitigated that question. So the first thing I did was I added a bullet point that talked about my volunteer experience at my last company. Now, if you were to look at the other 3 bullet points, I spent probably 95% of my time on those and maybe 5% on that last one. Every interview I've gone into for the past 2 years, that last bullet point is what's been focused on. I've also done community service with a couple of different organizations, but I focused it on my work with Big Brothers to show that I've made a long-term commitment to kids. So by doing this, and by making a few simple language tweaks, I was able to convince people in education that I cared and that I was right for a job.
I also will begin with questions. So how many of you are international students? Please raise your hand. So how many of you like to find it so different of the resume here in your country and here? You need to rewritten your resume to apply a job here. Please raise your hand. Oh, pretty much. I'm come from China. I will work here in the summer. I want to work here after graduation. So today I will talk about the difference of the resume in China and here, and also share some tips how to prepare a resume to apply a job here as an international student. About the resume in China, I tried to do some research online recently. I think one new trend, especially among the college students, they try to spend a lot of money to design their resume, to add more design elements into the resume. But we all know that doesn't work. It's a waste of money. They only make your resume look less professional. And the second thing, in China, all people like to put a lot of personal information on the resume, like the pictures, genders, nationality, and even some girls put some size of the, like these things on their resume to get some special jobs. But we all know that in America, when a company saw all the information on your resume, they will throw it into trash directly, because they don't have anyone based on some discrimination and don't get sued. The last thing is, I try to find my old version of Chinese resume. Usually we have 2 pages. We try to put all the information on them, besides that the personal information, like all the awards, even from the high school, and all these things. And third thing is we sometimes exaggerated the information a little. but it's a very comprehensive topic. If anyone are interested at that, we can talk in the Q&A section. So how to adjust your resume to apply a job here? I have 3 tips. The first thing is you try to reduce the cultural difference. The most direct way to do it is just ask others' opinions. For example, talk to some native speakers. Let them to look through your resume to figure out you deliver the information you want. And also can talk to some people like from CMC Career Center to get some very professional opinions. The second thing is learn how to prioritize your information, especially from the others' perspectives, to think about what company really want to know from you and just keep that information on your resume. And the third thing, we have the honor code here. I know this is a really serious issue here. So always tell your story and deliver all the information in a very fair and honest way. Thank you.
So, in addition to the resume part, you're also being constantly judged, and that is by your online identity. I mean, online identity is a new medium in which employers can have a better understanding of who you are, what you do, where you come from, what hobbies you choose, outside of the context of the traditional resume, cover letter, and interview. And did you know that 95% of all companies use some form of social media to recruit new talent? Well, with that in mind, I'm confident that you competitive MBA people will probably think, how will this make me get ahead of the game? And so social networks have expanded your contacts. However, the real challenge now lies in your ability to understand how to leverage these opportunities to establish new connections and turn them into real opportunities. And so let me start off with a LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure that most of you, all of you, have LinkedIn profiles. However, I would like to offer some tips on how to maximize the exposure. So there are about 1 billion searches annually on LinkedIn. Although while some are for people and companies, some are for keywords. And where you place these keywords matters a lot. For example, the top 4 highest ranking goes to name, title, skill, and I'm missing headline, which brings me to the next point. Headlines matter a lot for your LinkedIn profile. Similar to a newspaper article, headlines need to grab the attention. And it needs to tell what differentiates you, what makes you special, and what you want to be known for. And recommendations and endorsements. These are some of the new features of LinkedIn. They're not necessarily related to the search aspect. However, they definitely add credibility to your profile. So why not, as a thank you gesture, write someone a recommendation or endorse them, and I'm sure that in return, they will do the same for you. And social media engagement is all about two-way, two-stream interaction. So why not start one, whether it be send an email or post an update, engage in your company profile page. Those are some of the ways. Additionally, your employers also, especially in Silicon Valley, also look very closely at your online web presence to have a better understanding. For example, last year, a firm called Union Square Ventures, they completely forgone the whole traditional resume submission process and opted for links, set of links, anything from blogs to Twitter accounts. And earlier this year, a firm called Entrasys, which is a US tech company, for its chief social media strategist position, there are 2 requirements. Number 1 is to submit your resume through these resumes, which are 140-letter resumes. And number 2, you must have at least 1,000 followers. So hopefully I've demonstrated to you how your online identity can impact your job search. And before I hand it off over to Santiago, I would like to caution you that social media is simply a tool and not a solution in and of itself. And nothing beats meeting people face to face, shaking their hand, and telling them, I really want to work for you.
Thank you, Bob. Now, in the interest of us making sure you're aware of these critical factors of how not to be judged that quickly, we decided to take a little bit extra time, and given that we're only going to open up the floor for one question. So who's the lucky one? Go ahead.
So I think, Rainey, when American students are thinking about working internationally, should they keep do you have any thoughts on whether they should keep theirs to kind of try to stand out in the pool, or is it something where they should assimilate again, how should they go about that process?
I think 2 things maybe you pay attention to. The first thing is what kind of company, like international, you apply to. For example, you want to apply for some, like the job in investing banking, even in China or in Asian country, almost the same. And the second thing is, even you can use the same resume, you pay attention. Sometimes the HR people maybe ask more information according to their criteria.
So in summary, make sure that you understand that you have 30 seconds. Figure out how to keep things clear and pointing the right directions. Make sure that you're tuning to the right context, you speak the right language, you present the right information, and you manage yourself digitally. Thank you. Great job.